What is going on, beautiful people? I am going to go through a couple of photos here. Just got some edits that I need to do, and figure maybe you guys can tag along and watch some of the process here. So yeah, fun times. Let me let me turn my text off. Let me turn my image off. There we go. All right, we got our chat up here on the left-hand side. It's going to play a sound every time one of you guys, makes a notification. So I'm sorry if that gets a little irritating or whatever. Um, this screen right here, the please select a source. It's going to pop up every once in a while. Long story short, I've got a hard drive that's failing, and it just randomly pops up this box every time it starts and stops. I think one of the write heads is bad on it or something. So let's go ahead and hit cancel and let's get started. All right. First photo we're editing. I'm not sure if I want to take this and turn this into a silhouette or if I wanted to make it where you could actually see the detail in her. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up doing both. So first one for silhouette, silhouettes are easy. Just drop shadows down. And since we got our shadows dropped right about there, all right, let's mess with our highlights a little bit and try to get that background to really show up with some really beautiful colors here. All right, something that a lot of photographers don't talk about is like color depth and the perception of depth when it comes to color. So we're gonna mess with that a little bit. The area that we're gonna cover is dark on her, so it's gonna make things it's gonna make things better. If you try to do this on a subject that is light colored, it can really mess things up. So first things first, we're gonna come over here. We're gonna get out of this teeth whitening filter here, and we're just gonna run from bottom this way. We're gonna make sure our line's kind of drawn out some here. Ooh, no. There we go. Let's move this up just a tad. That way we're not getting into the sunset. All right, and our first one is we want to take the color of the sky and we want to add some more blue to it. Something else that we can do is if you pull through here, you can pull colors. Usually, brighter colors are going to look like they're closer to you. Darker colors are going to look like they're farther away. Um, Purples, blues, deep reds are really good for like night-ish kind of colors. So that's bringing some red into it. That's bringing blue into it, and that's bringing purple into it. So if we bring it like yellow, it looks ugly. Green, not so much. Once we start getting to the blue, it starts looking really good. We hit purple, looks even better. We get to the red, and I think the red is where it's going to be at on this one. So, all right. Now that we're here, we need to do a couple of more small things post processing wise. Um, if we pump up our texture, it's going to bring out a lot of the smaller details here. Let me show that. So we don't want to put it too high to where it looks crazy, pixelated, and ugly. So right about there is good. We've got some. It looks like some. What's the word for it? Looks like some chromatic aberration going on right around here, around her hair. So we see where her hair is, everywhere her hair is, there is the background looks lighter. So I set it there, and let's make sure that our fit and fill is only going to the same places here. So in order to get rid of chromatic aberration, Lightroom has a really small little button here. Just that's about all you can do with it. Something else that you can do with it is you can actually increase the luminance or the metallic look of the image. So we can bring that all the way up, and now we've got kind of a pastel looking thing. So instead of bringing it all the way up, we're just going to bring it to about 10 or 15, and that's perfect for me. Don't know about you guys, but perfect for me. Alright, so next thing I want to mess with is I want to mess with the sharpening. I mean, the image is actually fairly sharp on her, but that hair still messes with me a little bit, so let's bring our sharpening up. Something you can do to see like what you're sharpening is sharpening has like an overlay. If you hold Alt or Option and then click it, we got this here. Alright, I know it's hard to see. Hopefully y'all can see the difference there. See, that's kind of blurry looking. As you bring it up, the hair starts coming into more detail. So I want to leave it right at about 80-ish. And something else you can do is so that you're only sharpening the areas that you want to sharp is you have this sharpening, the masking tool for it. So let's bring this in here. And now whenever I hold Alt or Option, depending on what kind of computer you're on, alright, as soon as I click the masking, see that right now the whole image is being sharpened. That's why it's white. So as we pull this over, only our white areas are sharpened. So about 70-ish. Let's just do a quick double check. About 90-ish. And for me that looks a little better. We could also do that with the luminance slider. I'm just going to bring the luminance up just a little bit. I know I'm not saying that word right, but it is okay. Ooh, now it's a pretty picture. I put vignette on it. No. So as far as this one sets, this looks pretty close to done. I am going to throw some contrast in here just to give it a deeper feeling. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do it one more time because I want to darken this guy a little bit. So right there. Now we got a, well, in North Carolina where I'm at, this is an early morning shot. In California, this would be a late in the evening shot. Long story short, I love those sunrise sunsets, especially when you can put in an element like, you know, a person or just any kind of subject that'll pop out away from the sunset. For me, it makes it better. So, and kind of take a look around at the beach houses and stuff like that. Long story short, this was Mother's Day. It was super freaking cold outside. This girl is an absolute trooper. From here, we're going to mess with the exposure slider just so we can make it where it's not super crazy. There we go. Now, I know I'm going to zoom into the sun here, but what I'm zooming into the sun for is I'm looking for like hot spots on the lens. It'll show. Oh, this one's pretty much done. Something you can do here is you can actually mess with your color temperature. I like it looking a little warmer right here. So that one is absolutely beautiful to me. So from here we go export. Alright, and we're going to change our subfolder. And our subfolder is going to be edits, if I can spell. Edits for Twitch. See, I can't spell. Alright, now since I'm not uploading or printing this, I probably should have it printed. But since I'm not printing this, I'm just gonna take it down to 2460 on the long edge, and I'm gonna limit the file size to 2500 kilobytes. That way I can get as much of the quality in it as possible. I'm gonna keep the resolution at 300 pixels an inch, and we're gonna go ahead and hit export. When we do that, click over here, edits for Twitch. Here is our image. Alright, we got our silhouette done now. Let's come back up here into Lightroom. And Lightroom has a super cool tool. If you are working with an image and you just want to scrap everything that you're doing on it, just boom, reset, brings it right back to what it was before you started editing on it. That being said, doesn't work all the time with like a JPEG image. I shoot in a RAW format, and a RAW format keeps that color depth and that information there, and Lightroom is able to process it without destroying the image. So again, I'm going to start off here. This time I'm going to bring our highlights down. I'm going to bring our whites down a little bit. So we're going to bring our blacks up and our shadows up this time. That way we can kind of get some of the detail back in her. Here I'm also going to bring our exposure up, like, 3/4 of a stop. So that way we can pull our whites down, we can pull our highlights all the way down. That way we still have some of that sunset in there and that color. Now what we all can also do from here is, if this is too light, we can just come in here to our brush tool. We can just brush it darker. And using that brush, it allows us to manipulate it a little farther. So we can bring our colors in there, bring up our magentas. But for the overall color tone of this image, I want to do that in just the regular like exposure thing. So I want to bring up our purples over the whole image, and I want to make it a tad warmer. And that's going to give us, a nice warm purpley kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to think of the word. Kind of like a fantasy-ish kind of color profile going on. So now texture, we don't want to pull texture up too much because we are in skin at this point. See what I'm saying? We can pull texture back, but then that's going to make our whole image look pastel-y and washed out. So I only want to bring the texture to about 14, 15-ish. We can also try messing with the clarity slider, see what it does on this image. So as we pull our clarity up, we get some nasty, harsh looking stuff on the back side of her, so I don't like that. So clarity we will leave the same. I want to pull the warmth up in the image just a little bit, and I'm going to add a little more of that purple to it. That way it doesn't look so cold. Alright, so our dehaze. Dehaze is an awesome tool if you're taking pictures in the fog. What it does on an image that's not hazy is it actually increases the contrast of the image, and it also boosts the vibrance of the image at the same time. So as you move that slider forward, too much is too much, too little is too little. So let's add some actual vibrance into it. And we got our saturation slider. Alright, now if you look, the image is, it's kind of noisy. It was shot at ISO 800, and we have definitely pumped up the blacks on the image. So whenever you stop pumping up blacks on the image, it kind of goes away. But you can see you can see ISO noise better in darker areas than you can lighter. So in order to fix that, we're going to come over here to our luminance slider. I love this slider. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. We're just going to pump that up to about 30, and that brings that noise down. Remember, we don't want to make it too high for this image, because when we bring it too high, it ends up washing the whole image out. Now the detail, we can bring that up, and that'll bring back some of our noise. If we bring our detail down, it takes it away. So we want some noise there. Hey, what's up, Jeremiah? How you doing, buddy? And we can bring the contrast up our luminance as well. So I want to bring that up to about 50. Now, I'm doing pretty good. I'm sitting here editing photos of your favorite girl, and don't type her name. Alright, so now we're going to get rid of our chromatic aberration here. And let's... Yes, okay. Yeah, okay. It is your favorite girl. Anyways, back to profile correction. Add profile correction on it. That's just going to take some of the... that's going to adjust the... I don't know the words for these things anymore. Anyways, that's going to adjust the distortion of the lens. So like your lens is like this. You've got a plane. Now your lens, it bubbles out kind of like that. And in order to correct it, you have to push that back in to where it's two flat sides. And that's essentially what this profile correction is doing, as well as it is taking and it is getting rid of the vignetting around the edges of the lens from using an FX, using a DX lens, like a DX crop lens on an FX camera. Alright. Our background looks pretty straight here. And we can actually, we'll pull it down just a tad. That looks pretty good. Now from here, I actually want to bump up the exposure just a tad, because I'm trying to keep all this kind of middle of the road. And that's another important thing, is your histogram. Your histogram has all of your color information. It has all of your light information. It is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tool. If we pull our contrast up, it spreads it out. We'll bring our contrast down. It brings it all into the center. We want it to cover as much of that as possible. And if we set our shadow clipping and our highlight clippings, alright, so we can actually stand to bring our highlights up a tad. So, hey, what's up? Let's do this. How you doing, bud? What's up, Lurks? Alright. Bring our whites up just a tad. Whenever you get these red blotches here, that red blotch means that you are over a 150% of pure white in that portion of the image. So that is your highlight clipping for Photoshop. Save yourself ink. We can actually stand to bring down shadows a tad. And we'll bump up our exposure just a little bit. There we go, looking pretty good. Alright, we're ready to export this one. So edits for Twitch, make sure all that's right. We got the limit file size, we got the resize, and export. We're going to use unique names so that we don't overwrite our previous one. Alright, and Want to refresh? There we go. This is edit 1. This is edit 2. Same exact image for both of them. Alright, now for the next one, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to use the same image on this. Let's come over here. Let's hit reset. And we can see our shadow clipping has taken over her derriere. Alright, now that we are reset, we're going to turn this to black and white. And shadow clipping is very, very important in black and white. So you don't want your blacks to be too dark because you... You laughing because I said derriere? Don't want the shadows too dark because then you're wasting ink on a printer. And you don't want your highlights too bright because then you're not using enough ink or it is going to try to smudge. And we don't want either one of those. Yes, her butt was blue. Alright. And this is about where most people leave it alone. But not this guy. Bring our exposure up. We're going to do kind of the same thing that we did earlier. Now, black and whites is... I do like to see vignette on black and white. So... Stupid fly. And with this one, we're actually, instead of doing too much here, we're going to use our curves. I understand curves better when it comes to black and white. See, if we pull this down, it gets darker. We pull that up, it gets lighter. So we're just going to use a little bit at a time, in different places in the curve, and bring our mids up. We're going to bring our highlights down. Alright, now here's where it gets really interesting, and I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit. Red, green, blue. When it comes to black and white, they all have different color spaces. So if we bring all of these down, now we're going to work with our image from here. If I turn this clipping off, yeah, well, that happens. Since we brought our yellow all the way down, all of a sudden we don't have a sunset in this image. So we want to bring our yellow up. We don't want to bring it anywhere too crazy. Now our oranges, we're going to bring that up as well. And then our reds, I'm going to bring those, we're going to leave those kind of down. And now our greens, this is our green channel. Now if you look at what's going on here with pumping up the colors, has made her kind of look like she's got smallpox. So that's something that we need to take care of that. So we want this. We want all our skin to kind of be the same color-ish. Alright, and then our blue channel, we've got a lot of color space in our blue channel. If you bring the blues up, to me it looks kind of washed out when it comes to water. So we're going to bring it down, and we're actually going to put some real contrast into our blues. I'm going to do the same thing with our aqua channel. Our aqua channel will actually bring it up some. Yeah, I'm not interested on buying anything, brother. Bring our red channel up just a tad. Now you can actually mess with your color temperature in black and white as well. Now from here I want to bring in some contrast, We're going to bring our texture up, and this time we'll do clarity because we want the water to be kind of like the focus of the image. Thank you for deleting that message, Jeremiah. And we can actually bring our whites up, and we got our clipping and our whites over there. That's about perfect. Good job. We got some funky color stuff going on again. That's good enough. Now let's bring our luminance. Since we messed with our texture, let's bring our luminance up. We're going to enable our profile correction there. We actually bring our clarity back some, which looks really cool. And then the haze will bring that back just a tad as well. And then pump in a little more contrast. Here is our black and white version of that. So we're actually going to take and we're going to bring our exposure down some on that just so we have more of the sunset. And now I want to bring those shadows up. So we're actually going to do it with our exposure here. That way she looks better in the image. Alright, so this one's pretty much done. We can go ahead and export that. And we're going to use unique name for that one as well. And that should show up down here on our edits for Twitch folder. So here are our 3 different edits of the same photo. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Which one's the best? You tell me. Black and white, light colors, silhouette. All right. Now, let's close that. Let's find another image to work with. Let me open OBS back up here so that I can kind of hide the, because if I start, you like the light color and the black and white one. Very cool. So we're going to turn our image on, that way we can find our next photo. Alright, let's hit reset. Let's turn the clipping off and pull this down. And let's turn our image off. There we go. We are back. Time for another edit. So this is kind of cool as it sits. You got a lot of kind of detail still in her skin, and yes, she is wearing clothing. So from here, our sky looks good, our sand looks good. So really it's going to be messing with the colors and the levels of where she is. We could, this image, where it sits, it can go either way. It can go up to a silhouette, or it can go down to a silhouette, or it can go up to a full color photo. I always start with silhouettes first. That's just a personal preference. It's not something that anybody else has to do. So silhouettes first. We're just going to bring our shadows down. Let's bring our blacks down a little bit. Let's bring our shadows up some. And we got some red peeking through there. And this is just a small adjustments here. We got it over there in her hair, so we need to bring our shadows up. pretty good. Bring our blacks down just a tad, just to give it more depth. Something that does need to be done is this image needs to be straightened, dear God. Alright, now that it's semi-straight, I need to come over here and enable the profile correction. That way it doesn't look bubbled. There we go. And we're going to bring that back down to where it was before the profile correction. So our highlights, we can actually bring our highlights down and bring more of that yellow behind her. And we can actually mess with our colors here. I think that looks pretty cool, but that is not an edit for me. We can bring it up and make it warmer. And we can bring some purple into it. Now since it's a silhouette, you can actually pump clarity a little higher than you can with just regular like skin. And we can actually put in some texture as well. We can throw some Haze on it. We got our Vibrance. Let's bring our Vibrance to about there, and let's bring our saturation to there. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, let's mess with our curves just a tad. Let's bring our darks down, or bring the dark ones down a little bit. It looks pretty good now. Perfect. And so we can also mess with our color profiles here. So we bring our reds down, it takes the red out of the sky. Yes, the ocean is kind of purple. You can actually bring the purple completely out of it. The ocean is more like if I mess with the blue slider, it's got to be your screen, bud. Because when I come over here to my purple slider, the only thing that changes is the hooey banger up there on top. We can get rid of our oranges, but we want to pump those up a little bit. We're trying to give it some color saturation, but we don't want it to be too over the top. Alright, reds. Right about there. There's no green information in it, so we're going to turn it completely off. That way we're not saving that information into our JPEG. Yeah, come on in. Do you need something? Alright, our aquas. Not a whole lot of information there. Now our blues. Let's bring some blues up. Get our purples in there. Our magenta. That way we've got a nice transition from yellow to purple. And that looks pretty good to me. What's up, buddy? Yeah. What's up, man?
Well, the ocean does look kind of purple, but for this, it's purple. And once you turn the little hooey banger, this little corner right there kept going blue to purple once you turned the purple.
Yeah.
You can look at that.
My kid is showing me something for the blue to purple. Well, yeah. That's the... I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We're going to leave it alone, though. Because if we try to pull it back, look at our sky.
It makes the sky more blue. More like kind of like an aqua color.
Alright, shut my door.
Can I sit in here?
You can sit in here, yeah. Just shut the door. Alright. Anything else that we want to do to this image? We can throw some sharpening on it, and we're gonna, wrong button, that was the option button. We're adjusting where we want our sharpening to be. Right there. Oh yeah, that looks damn good. Excuse my mouth.
That looks cool.
It does.
You need to do a photo with that. Wait a second, it's coming.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to export this one. Edits for Twitch. Export. Alright, let's come down here and let's hit this this reset button. After it gets done exporting, there we go. Reset, boom. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum with it. We want to bring our shadows up. That door's not shut. And then we want to bring our blacks up. We can actually bring our exposure up a touch. Let's get rid of our highlights. Let's bring our whites down. Pump our contrast a little bit. Alright, let's bring some purple into it. Make it a little warmer. Now, there we go. And enable profile correction. Now, since we have her in view and she's not a silhouette anymore, whenever we pump up the texture, look at what happens. So we actually want to kind of shy away from that a little bit. We can also pull texture down a little bit we can actually pull it down just a tad to smooth it out some. Alright, when we bring our clarity up, it kind of does the same thing. It highlights those textures again. So we're going to bring that to about 7, and then we're actually going to pump some dehaze into it. There we go. Bring our vibrance up. Bring our saturation up a tad. Now this time we want to kind of make a mask per se, and we're actually going to kind of mess with the corners a little bit. Alright, this line is too abrupt. There we go. Now from here, we're going to pull our highlights down. We're going to pull our whites. Oh, guess it helps if I have something selected, huh? We can pull our highlights down. Pull our whites down a tad. We can stretch it out. Do the same thing with this one. We're going to stretch it out. And we can actually bring our shadows down on it. Bring our blacks down. There we go. Now with this one, we're kind of going to do the same thing. Bring our highlights down. Bring our shadows down. Bring our blacks down. Close those off. That looks a little better. I'm going to add a little bit of a vignette to it to kind of cover up our masking marks. looks pretty good. Now, something else that you can do when it comes to, you know, photos like this, especially in bright daylight, is you can adjust your highlights and your shadows to them. So if I want the image to be warmer, I can adjust the highlights of the image and I make them all warmer. Or if I want to make them cooler, I can make them all cooler. And that's just affecting the highlights. I want the highlights to be a little bit more purple. Alright, and for our shadows, bring our shadows up to about there. Now, bring our luminance up, sharpening, and our masking. That looks a lot better than it did. Oh, she has a bruise on her knee. Let's take care of that real fast. Only me.
Yeah, 4 people in here.
Alright, and we can export this one. Use unique names for it. Now for our black and white, we're going to leave our colors kind of the same, but we're actually going to bump our exposure a tad. And we're going to bring down our our shadows. No, bring down our blacks to give it a little more contrast, and then throw some contrast at it. And we can export that one right away. Use unique names. Hit refresh. There we go. And here are our 3 images that we just did for this one. So this is image number 1. This was our silhouette with a huge boost in colors. Sorry, I'm kind of having heartburn. My kid's sitting next to me now. Had to be in the video, eh? Alright, this is our color image. Not my favorite, but it is what it is. And then our black and white. Our black and white, I find that absolutely beautiful. I might actually have that one printed. Or this one. I can't make up my mind.
I like the silhouette better.
You like the silhouette better?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so it's settled. Silhouette it is.
I like this one because it has so much contrast between the picture and her.
Mm-hmm.
I sound like I'm smart.
Alright, now let's get OBS open here. Let's find our next image. Alright, figure we go with an image that's a little harder to deal with. She is facing towards the sun. She's facing towards the sun, so you've got some really, really yellow highlights on her. But then the background around her is kind of cool with the water. So this is going to be a fun one to mess with. So let's reset it. There you go. Image is actually fairly straight. Needs a little bit of adjustment. Alright. Just taking a look at, you know, color noise, that kind of stuff. Man, she has got the worst goosebumps. I'm so sorry. Anyways, it's 40 degrees outside. It was Mother's Day. It was an absolutely fun. It was a fun day, but where do I want to start on this? I want to start by warming up the overall image. And we throw some, see, if you throw purples in there, purples don't look good. If you throw blues in there, greens, it doesn't look good. So this one is a challenge. You could be that guy to be like, boom, it's done. But I'm not that guy. I want the colors to be right. I want everything to match. So if we pump up our highlights, it brings the water up where it needs to be, but then it blows out the little bit of sky that's around her. So we're going to bring our highlights down, and we're going to bring our whites up. Bring our highlights down a little bit more. All right. Now, with the shadows, we can go out one or two ways to correct this with her. We can bring the shadows down and give it a high contrast front to back, or we can bring it up and try to bring all of her skin to the same tone. For the first one, we're going to go down. And we're going to do the same thing. We pull our blacks down, kind of does the same thing. And push our blues into it a little bit. Let's just reset the color temperature to where it was. Alright, now let's come over here and we're actually going to hit our split toning. Our highlight tones. Let's make our highlights orange, or orangish. Alright, now we're going to do our shadows. Let's bring our shadows down into a bluer. And now let's adjust our white balance, so our temperature and our tint, to correct that. There we go, and we can actually bring our blacks back up just a tad. And from here we can pull that down. I think I got a portion of her face, yeah. Sad face. That's going to throw me off for the rest of the image. So get our exposure down there and throw some contrast away. Alright, we got texture. We can actually bring our texture up a little higher because she's facing away from us and we can do more with it. Clarity is a no-go. So we'll put that at about -10. Our dehaze looks alright. And now this is where it gets fun, our vibrance. So we bring our vibrance down, kind of gives you a cool yellow blue effect when you can see like the red bikini. If we bring it up, you bring more information into the sky and the waves and not so much on her. So I want to bring it down a tad, and I want to bring our saturation up a tad. Alright, from here, now we can bring our exposure back up. And now let's do our curves. So we want the blacks on her to be dark. We want to keep the shadow right in this area. I'm actually editing using my other screen, so sorry. So shadows here. And let's check our lights there, and let's bring our highlights up just a tad. And it looks like we got some magenta going on and some purple going on in the waves, as well as some blue. So I actually want to pump the blue a little bit. I want to ditch some of the purple in the waves and ditch some of the magenta in the waves. I want any reds that are in the image to kind of stand out because they're kind of like a focal point. Your eye is naturally attracted to red. All right, now our oranges, we can bring our oranges down. Now, where was it? I'm lost. Split toning, there we go. Our split toning was a bit much. Sharpening, masking. All right. Now we've got the basics of our image. And now we need to adjust color, tone, and bring the exposure to a normal level. So it's pretty simple. Bring it there. Bring our blacks up a tad. Bring our highlights down. Drop our whites a little bit. And all we're doing is naturalizing. See, now the skin here isn't as yellow as it was, but now we've got a problem where we are too desaturated. So let's pump our oranges back in here. We got our yellows. That looks a little better. Now we can warm up the overall image. That is 100% warm. That is 100% cold. We need to find a middle ground. I think our split toning is screwing with the image. So let's bring that down. Just little adjustments. Alright, let's go back to our split toning and recorrect our split toning. And now let's bring our shadows back to where they were. There we go. Images like this are a challenge, to say the least. We can actually throw some vignetting in there, and that's just to pull the highlights down out of the corners of the image to bring more focus in on her. Right about there. Now we're just spot editing. Only because the skin is closer. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and let's export that. Make sure we've got them all set the same. Yep. So export. Alright, now reset. And now we're going to do our black and white. Black and white, way easier than messing with the color version of that. And we want to make our reds darker so they stand out more. Our oranges, we want to bring them up to the point where they're not highlight clipping. That looks pretty good there. And we got a lot of yellows in the image as well, so let's bring our yellow channel down just a tad. Alright, now green for RGB. I don't think we have any color information for green. So let's check our aqua. Bring our aqua up, it brings the water up higher. We want the water darker. And we can bring our blues down to kind of do the same thing to give it more of a contrast. Alright, and now we're going to bring up the colors in her without bringing up too much of the water in the purples. Alright, let's bring our magenta up. Enable our profile correction. So whenever you do post-crop vignetting on a black and white image, it can take away from it or it can add to it. In this case, it takes away from it. We're going to sharpen a little bit. You said an image like that, Jeremiah?
I think it needs to be a little bit lighter on her body, but that's kind of light.
I know the other one looked cooler,
Yeah.
but still. Let's pull some contrast out of this image. Yeah. I'm going to actually pump. No, hell no. No clarity. Texture slider looks terrible. How about our dehaze? No, it looks like we got it pretty spot on first try. All right. And we are good to go. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to export this one as well. Use a unique name for it. Now, I want to do two different versions of the black and white of this image. I want the standard black and white, like, you know, this is monochrome with the color channels adjusted. What I want to do is I want to make it duotone or tritone. So I want to use the split toning to adjust the image in such a way that it still looks like it's black and white, but it isn't a true black and white image. So let's do that. I'm going to bring that up. And right there, see, that's not a true black and white, but it looks black and white. So let's export and export. Use unique names. Now after we refresh here, we'll have there we go. So image number 1, very golden image. Image number 2, just a black and white. Image number 3, a color toned black and white. All right, that's my 3 images for the day, guys. So if you enjoyed watching,
You want to say bye to everybody?
we got Commander Roots back. Let's do this streamer. Loot 20 is on here, and so is Lurks. If y'all enjoy watching this stuff, smash that follow button, guys. I mean, I like to edit photos. I do a lot of photography. I mean, I do this with the permission of the people that I'm photographing. So let's actually make something out of this. Also, if you are enjoying this stream, you can see more content, more images over here at https://wonkus.com, and you can also look up the Wonkus on YouTube. All right, y'all have an absolutely wonderful day. Deuces.